If you've ever run Google Ads before, you know it's super competitive, and for most people, you end up wasting a ton of money. And it's not every day that it works super well, and it seems to work better for some types of businesses than others. And today we're talking about septic companies. So maybe you run a septic company, or maybe you run a similar kind of business, or maybe you're just curious about Google Ads. If any of those things are true, then you should take a look at this video. So quick story, why am I here talking about this? I've been in construction my whole life, and for the last 8 years, I've been running a marketing company. And for the last 6 months or so, I've been managing all the Google Ads myself. And so I've been, in the weeds on it. I'm seeing a lot of things that I think are interesting. And so today I'm talking about one of our clients that we run Google Ads for. They are a septic company, and I just want to run through some of the stats, some of the things that I look at, so that if you are doing Google Ads or paying somebody or just curious about it, then this will help you kind of get a lay of the land and know what some of this stuff means. So this particular account that I'm looking at today, we're looking at a 90-day snapshot. So this is 90 days into the past from yesterday. They've spent almost $14,000, generated almost $500 worth of, or 500 leads, and their cost per lead is around $28. So I'm just going to go through each one of these and kind of talk about what it is. So they've spent 14,000-ish. That's pretty easy to understand. 484 conversions. So conversions for this account can be somebody calling from the Google Ads or going to the website and filling out the form. Their cost per conversion, you'll also hear me call it cost per lead. This is how much they're paying per lead. So $28-ish. Let's say it takes them 5 leads to actually close a deal. Then they're spending, roughly $130, $140 to get a job. If they profit, I don't know how much they're profiting, but if they profit $1,500 per job and they're paying $150 to get them, then that's a 10x return on their investment, which is pretty solid. The conversion rate, this is almost 20%. That just means about 1 in 5 people who actually click on their ads are converting, so becoming a lead. Click-through rate, that just means for every time the ad shows up, how many times is somebody clicking it, and the average cost per click is $5.50. So my judgment, if you don't look at these numbers all the time, you probably don't know what you're looking at, but to get leads for less than $30 is very solid. In home services, it's common to be spending hundreds, sometimes even thousands per lead, depending on what kind of business you're in. Pretty much any business, if I'm running any kind of business, if I'm getting leads for $30 and they're decent leads, I'm happy. I can figure out how to make that work. The conversion rate being almost 20%, that's very high. This number can go back and forth. A lot of it depends on what the strategy is. So I'm not going to dig too much into it, but to get 1 out of 5 people who click through to actually contact us is pretty solid. And the cost per click being $5.50, that's pretty low. It's not uncommon to be paying $30, $40 a click, depending on what niche you're in. Septic in particular it's a very good industry to run Google Ads because it's just not very competitive. The 2 campaigns this one has going are septic services. They also do portable restroom and that kind of stuff. So let's take a minute and talk about why Google Ads is so effective for this company and why it's so effective for septic companies in general. So the first one is, when it comes to remodeling, that's usually optional for people. People want a new kitchen. They don't necessarily need one. When it comes to getting your septic tank pumped or, getting a septic tank installed, you don't really have an option. You need that. And so that makes, it's a nice business to be in. It's also they call it unsexy. Nobody wants to pump poop for a living. So there's not a ton of competition. And the ones who are doing it, they're typically pretty busy. They're not too desperate for work, so they don't put that much time and resources into their marketing. So it's very uncompetitive. Half of it's an emergency. So if somebody has an emergency situation, they need it right away, That kind of situation always lends itself really well to Google Ads, and the search is unambiguous. So that just means like when people search for this, they're searching for this. People don't accidentally stumble across this. They don't spend a lot of time researching this kind of stuff. When they search it, they want it. That also lends itself really well to being effective with Google Ads. Like, this is the kind of stuff that we look at. This is the kind of stuff we report on. So I'm just sharing it so you can have an idea. And, if you're running some ads yourself, you can get an idea of like maybe what some of the keywords are that you should be using. But I can see like this is a sample of some of the keywords that we are bidding on that are doing really well. You can see like septic tank service got 13 leads for $39 a piece. And you can just kind of look through here. Like, we've got the cost per lead in this column, how many leads were generated, and how much the cost per click is. And so you can see like some of these septic field contractors, septic tank installer, the cost per lead is extremely low. And most likely this particular client's the only one bidding on these things, which is why they're so low. We've also been running these accounts for many years, so they're very dialed in, and they have a very good credit score with Google. These are some of the highlights that the person who made this report threw in there. So they mentioned the hidden gold mine is grease traps. Restaurants are legally required to have grease traps cleaned on a schedule, and every one of them is on a recurring contract. So if you're running this kind of business, it's like a gold mine for you. Try to get those contracts, even if you have to spend a lot more than $34 a lead. If you have to spend 100 or maybe even 1,000, I don't know how much these contracts are worth to you, but when you can get, a commercial client, a business client who's going to have you back, week after week, month after month, like that's a great place to focus some of your attention. Let's see. Yeah, so these guys happen to be getting install leads for very cheap, which is awesome. So you can only figure this kind of stuff out by actually running the ads. Each area is different, each market's different. It depends on how many customers there are out there and how many of your competitors are actually utilizing this properly, which I can tell you, I've audited hundreds of Google Ads accounts, and I almost never find one that isn't wasting a ton of money. It's very common for people to be bidding on keywords that are completely unrelated, or to be showing their ads to people who like aren't even in the service area, oftentimes aren't even in the country. So if you're starting to do this for the first time, what we look at, one of the questions is always like, well, how many leads can I get out of this? Because Google Ads isn't like a water faucet with unlimited water. Like, you open the faucet all the way and drops come out. And maybe you can open it a little further and get a few more drops, but it's not unlimited. So with any campaign, we always pick a starting point. Usually it's $2,000 or $3,000 a month to go into the ads. And we look at how much of the impression share that we capture. So what impression share is, when, let's say 100 people search for these keywords that we're bidding on, and you can see we're showing up for about 23% of the impression share. That means of those 100 people that searched, we showed up 23 times. We showed up for 23 of them. So that means that we actually missed 77% of the searches, which is kind of crazy. What that means to this company is they could theoretically triple their budget and be able to yield more leads, up until a certain point. Now, the way that Google Ads works, and this is really non-intuitive, even for me, and I understand this stuff, but the more that you are willing to pay per lead, the fewer leads there are. So, let's say that there's 100 leads to go around and you've captured half of them. You captured 50. That means of the remaining 50, there's you and your competitors are all going after that smaller and smaller pool of leads. And so maybe once you get to the last 10, there's only 3 companies willing to spend enough to get the last 10, but they're willing to spend a lot more than the people who got the first 10. So essentially what it means is you get diminishing returns. We could probably double the budget of this account and get double the leads. But if we doubled the budget again, we might only get like 25% more leads. And if we doubled the budget again, we might only get like 10, 15% more leads. So it's like the more you spend, you get diminishing returns on that. But when you're getting good results on a campaign and you see that you're only showing up 23% of the time, that means there's more room. This particular company, they can't handle more work. But if they could, they have a lot farther they can go with their marketing. So if you're thinking about doing this, like let's say that you're in a market just like this and conversions cost around $30. If you're a brand new account, haven't done this before, your stuff's not optimized, you don't have a good credit score with Google, then your cost per lead might be $50 or so. You're going to spend more in the beginning. For some companies out there, leads cost $500. I work with remodelers who spend over $1,000 a lead, and they're happy to do that because for every $5,000 they spend on leads, they make 50 or something like that, so it works out for them. But let's say that you're in a market where it's going to cost $50 a lead and you set your budget to $150. You might go a month and not get any leads because it's not guaranteed. You're not just buying leads from the lead store, you're bidding on the chance to get a lead. And so it's kind of like gambling in a way. Like if you gamble enough times, it's like blackjack. You can stack the deck in your favor, you can count the cards, but it's normal to have a winning streak. It's normal to have a losing streak. That's exactly how Google Ads works too. So you might spend your whole budget, get no leads. And what most people do is they say, oh, well, this doesn't work. Google Ads doesn't work. And what they don't know is had they spent another $50, they might have got 3 leads. So that's why you'll often hear people talk about Google Ads and say, like, you need to give it a few months. You need to give it time to see how it goes. You need to ride the winning streaks, ride the losing streaks, and see where you average out. But if you're going into this, you should have a good idea of like, what's the maximum that you can spend to actually acquire a customer. And I've done other videos on that. I don't want to go too deep on that math. Maybe I'll do another one. But you want to figure out like, okay, if you can spend $500 to get a customer and still make your profit, or you can adjust your prices a little bit and still make the profit that you want, then you have that number. And so when you are buying leads through Google Ads, you can watch it. And if you get to $1,000 spent and you still haven't got a customer, starting to not look good. If you get to 1,500, you still haven't got a customer, like maybe this isn't going to work for you. Or maybe you find that you're able to get customers for about 300 a piece and you're happy with those numbers. So those numbers will be unique to you. I wouldn't pay too much attention to what the industry averages are because your market is different than everyone else's. I work with enough people to know that one guy might be getting leads for $15 and the same exact business in another city, it costs $75. So it's unique to you. And here's a few things to watch out for if you're running the ads or if you're paying someone to run the ads. These are the things that you want to get confirmation on. So the first one is like the target area. Where are you showing these ads? Most of the time, you want to be showing them in a 20, 30 mile radius around your location, maybe bigger, maybe smaller. You don't want to be showing them in the whole state. You don't want to be showing them in the whole country. You don't want to be showing them in the whole world. A lot of people do that. It's easy to misclick one button and have your ads showing to people in Bangladesh, and those people are never going to pay you. So you're completely wasting money showing your ads to them. The next one is negative keywords. So in Google Ads, you bid on keywords, and you can also put in negative keywords. So you're like, the ones you bid on, you're like, I want to show for these. The negatives are like, I never want to show for those. So like DIY, oftentimes we'll avoid things like how much does this cost, average price. A lot of times we'll set negatives for competitors, because if someone's searching for a competitor that happens to have a keyword in their name, we don't necessarily want to show for that. Maybe sometimes we do, but you should Negative keywords are something that we often add to as time goes on. If it's an account that is very similar to another account we've run before, we'll usually borrow the keywords from that account, put them in the new one, give it a head start. That's a huge benefit of working with somebody who has a lot of accounts, is oftentimes they can kind of start you off a little ahead of where you would be otherwise. Leaving display network turned on. So display network is, when you're like on a random website and you see those advertisements, those little banners pop up, that's what display ads are. And there's a time and a place for those ads, but it's usually not for home services companies. But Google likes to turn this stuff on by default because it gets you to spend more money, even if it doesn't do anything for you. So don't leave those on accident. Call tracking. So you saw that we track conversions. So this number right here, conversions. We track calls, we track form submissions. So this is something that we have to set up, and it gets pretty technical to do it right. Most people do it wrong. Most people don't have this set up properly. But a conversion, what it is, like let's say somebody clicks your ad, they go to your website, they call you. You really want that phone call to make its way back to Google Ads so that Google Ads says, oh, that's a good one. We want more of those. And Google Ads will use their $1 trillion algorithm to show your ads to more people that are more likely to call you. If you don't get that data, that information back to Google Ads, then it's not optimizing for anything. And even worse, if you cross wires and you send them conversions for things you don't want, like it's super common for agencies to add like page view, which means if someone opens your website, it counts as a conversion. Well, they opened your website, they clicked on the ad. And so just optimizing for people who click on the ad doesn't necessarily help you. This number 4 in here is call tracking, but I extend it to anything, like whatever you want them to do, you set up a conversion action for that. It's very easy to get it wrong. It's very hard to get help about how to do this properly. That's why I don't usually recommend people do their own Google ads unless you're willing to really take the time and learn how this stuff works. And then the last one on this list is budget starving your winners. So if I go back up here, I can see these different keywords here. And you can see the average cost per click is kind of across the board. So you can see this one's a higher cost per click, the grease trap one. That means that more people are willing to bid on it higher. And because we have this campaign so optimized, and it's been optimized for the conversions, like I just explained, we are able to let Google dictate how much we spend for clicks. And that's why we'll spend more for this. But let's say that we didn't let Google do it and we didn't track conversions properly and we set this to $10. Our ad probably wouldn't have shown. If it did, it would have shown so far down on the list that we wouldn't have got those 5 leads. And those leads were really premium. And so you can starve your account at the keyword level, at the campaign level, at the account level. It's very common for people to say, oh, I tried putting $500 a month budget in and I only got 2 leads and it wasn't worth it. Or they're not spending enough. And you might ask, well, how much should I spend? It's like, well, you just got to spend a competitive level, like whatever your competitors are spending. If they're willing to spend 10 times as much as you, like they're just going to price you out. Why would Google show your ads when this company over here is willing to spend 10 times as much? So it's all a competition. It's all you versus the other companies like you. So you have to be better than them. And with Google ads, you oftentimes have to spend more than them. Let's see. So this is pulling some stats from other niches or other industries that we work in. So look at this, this is the cost per lead. And you can just see how different it is. Like window replacement, extremely competitive in a lot of places. There's a lot of big national brands bidding this stuff up, willing to spend pretty much anything to get a lead. And that's why they charge 2 or 3 times as much as smaller outfits, because they have marketing costs to cover. And so this is pulling the actual cost per lead from a handful of accounts that we actually manage. And it's aggregating them. So like multiple demo companies, multiple well drilling. So you can just kind of get an idea of what this is like. Again, it depends on your market, who you're competing against. So take these with a grain of salt, but this is meant to just kind of give you an idea. But in general, Septic is 34 times cheaper than windows. So if you're in Septic, you can take a sigh of relief. This is going to be a lot cheaper for you to do. Look, if you're interested, I'm willing to take a look at your account. If you're running ads, take a look at your account for free. Just find the contact form. This is YouTube, so you can look in the description. You'll find a link to a contact form there. You can schedule a 20-minute call and take a look together. If you're interested in actually trying this out and you want to see about having us do it for you, again, just find that link and contact us. Happy to take a look, and I look forward to talking to you. So hopefully this is helpful. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments. I'll answer your questions there, and then that will help me make these videos more valuable in the future. So thank you for watching.